Hello everybody, and in today's video we will talk about the buffs that Kasumi receives in 3.7. As some of you might know, ever since the release of the 3.7 beta a few months ago, people have been wondering whether or not these buffs will remain until after the release. And after playing the full release of 3.7, I can gladly say yes, these buffs have remained for Kasumi. So without any further ado, let us talk about them. The first buff will increase the damage done by her ultimate by approximately 45%. Meanwhile, the second buff will increase the SP gained from her dash attack by 3 times. The third buff that Kasumi receives will now make her basic attack fill her bar 25% faster. And finally, the debuff done by her kunai will now last 30 seconds instead of 10 seconds. And here I would like to stop and explain why this last debuff is very important. In fact, this debuff alone changes the gameplay style of Kasumi entirely. In the past, when I talked about Kasumi and my experience with her, I said that my biggest problem is that her debuff or her kunai throw is very repetitive and takes too much time. You essentially have to attack with her, fill her bar, then use her kunai debuff, which takes several seconds to activate, and this is assuming that you are able to target the enemies with the debuffs and not miss them, where you have to repeat the same animations from the start. But even after you land the kunai as well as the debuff, you have to make sure that your bar is filled in order to use her dash attack. And even then, you only have 10 seconds to perform her dash attack as well as fill the bar again and perform her dash attack again. Obviously, this mechanic of playing her made her very repetitive and frankly speaking frustrating. But because in 3.7 her debuff will last 30 seconds, then you do not need to worry about performing her kunai debuff several times. Also, you do not need to worry as much about filling her bar before using her debuff, because within 30 seconds you can fill her bar from scratch several times and use her dash attack several times. This is a game changer for her as in how I use her, because now I do not have to be limited to only 10 seconds. But in turn, this also means I have to readjust my playstyle with her, because I'm very used to do her kunai attack every 10 seconds, even though now her debuff is still active. Another benefit of having her debuff last 30 seconds instead of 10 is that now you do not need to rely on Yamabuki Bronya, where basically in the past, because you had to reapply her debuffs so many times, again every 10 seconds, you also had the risk of being attacked by enemies because of redoing those same attack animations. And while Yamabuki Bronya is always welcomed in any scenario, it is nice to know that Kasumi can last much longer than before. However, this is not the only way where I changed my gameplay style with Kasumi because of these debuffs. As I said, in 3.7 she will also gain an increase in the amount of damage that she does from her ultimate as well as the amount of SP that she gains from her dash attack. Because the amount of SP that she gains from her dash attack is tripled, then I am 3 times more likely to use her ultimate several times in a single stage. In fact, as you can see from the gameplay, that is pretty much what I am doing. Anyway, now that you heard my thoughts about Kasumi's buffs in 3.7, I think that these are the biggest buff a Valkyrie has received ever since the game started 3 years ago. Usually when you talk about buffs for Valkyries, it is something like increase in damage for a certain attack or maybe give them a certain debuff. And it is very rare for a buff to change the gameplay style of a Valkyrie, and even then it isn't by much. But with this new buff for Kasumi in 3.7, it changes everything about her. Now you do not need to spend 25% of your time using her looking at the bottom half of the screen, making sure that the timer for her debuff hasn't ended yet. And you do not need to pay as much attention to how much your bar is filled in order to use her dash attack with her debuff. Again, in 30 seconds you can fill her bar from empty to full several times, as well as spam her dash attack multiple times within that period without having to worry about it that much. This is something that you have to actually experience for yourself, but you just do not pay as much attention to that small little timer as you did before. Instead, you pay more attention to the enemies around you. For example, in my own experience, I find myself dodging much better with Yae Kasumi compared to how I used to use her in the past, which in turn makes the game much more fun because again, I'm paying more attention to the gameplay and not numbers. Still, this is just my own opinion, so please tell me yours in the comments below. Have you experienced Yae Kasumi in 3.7 yet? Or maybe after this video, you are awaiting her release. Do not hesitate to share with me your thoughts because I am very interested in reading them. And while you are at it, please consider subscribe, rate, share because it does help the channel a lot. In addition, if you want, you can join our Discord where I would like to thank Omikames who helped me a lot in making this video. So again, thank you very much Omikames. And until my next video, thank you for watching and I hope you have a nice day.
只有这种程度吗？